To open up the Excel 2019 program in Windows 10, let's go ahead and click on its Start button to get the Start menu. And you got a list of all the programs that are sorted alphabetically. Let's go ahead and scroll down to the E's for Excel. There we go. Click on it and it'll open up the program. But if I have to do this throughout the day many times, that's going to be kind of annoying, especially when I can create shortcuts either on the desktop and or down below on the taskbar, like you see these other programs here that when you click on it, a single click, it'll open it up. So to create a shortcut on the desktop, just click and drag it, and you can see the pop-up, the link, just let go, and there's the shortcut. Click and drag that, move it so it's looking organized there, and double click on it to open it up. Or if you want it down below on the taskbar, so all you have to do is go ahead and do a single click to open up the program. Plus there's some more benefits by having it on the taskbar. I'll go over that in just a minute. Then let's go back and click on the Start button, go down to Excel, and this time right click on it and go to More and click on Pin to Taskbar. When you do that, hey, there you go, and you can click and drag it if you want to rearrange it, and I'll put it right there and click off. And then to open up the program, a single click, and there we go. Hey, there's Excel. Now when you open up Excel for the first time, you're going to get what's called the startup screen, and it's divided into two sections. On the left hand side you have the most recent programs that you opened up, and then to the right all the templates and the different offers they have here, the least of which is the blank workbook, which we'll open that up in just a minute. In earlier versions of Excel, you were able to go right to the blank workbook, and I'll show you how you can customize the options where you can just bypass the startup screen and go right to a blank workbook. So first of all, over here, I've got the recent files that I've opened up. Like today it was basic formulas, and then yesterday it was compatibility checker. And below that it tells you where it's at, or where it's supposed to be at, because I could have removed it or deleted it, in which case when I click on it to open it up, if it doesn't open up, then it'll give me some sort of error and say, look, we can't find it, we don't know where it's at. In any case, it's supposed to be on the desktop in the exercises folder. So let's go ahead and minimize our window down to the taskbar. And there's the exercises folder. Double click, and there it is, basic formulas and compatibility checker. So they're still there, so when I click on it, it'll open them up. Let me go ahead and close out, come back down below to the taskbar, click on it to restore the window. And you can see also that when I hover over it, it gives you in greater detail the actual address on the computer in computer terms. It's on the C drive, the user that I logged in is training, it's on the desktop, the exercises folder, and there's basic formulas. Now, these are the most recent ones that I've opened up. As I open up more and more files, the ones that are older will eventually get dropped off, because it will only contain so many in the recent list here. So if I do have a file that I don't open up a lot, but it's important to me that I always know where it's at, or I have access to it here, you see when I hover over it, like basic formulas, and you get this little pin here, or down below for compatibility checker, you can go ahead and click on it to pin the item to the list. When you do that, it puts it up in the pin section, so it's always there. It doesn't matter if you never open this up and you open up thousands of other files and they all get rolled off because it doesn't contain 1,000 in the list. This will always be there. Unless, of course, you want to go ahead and unpin it. It drops back down, and if it's one of the most recent ones, then it stays up there. But if it's an older one, it drops off, you won't see it. Now, as I mentioned, if you add the program, well, the shortcut to the program on the taskbar, you can right click on it. Hey, and guess what? You can also open up the program there if you right click on it to open up Excel if you don't want to click on it there, or if you have a workbook that's opened and doesn't give you that option to open up a new workbook, then you can right click and open up the new workbook here. You can also unpin it from the taskbar if you want to remove the program here. In any case, you can see up here you got the recent section just as you see here, and you can also pin it. So it's going to keep a list, and this jump list of the most recent files that you opened up, and as you hover over it you can see the address where it's supposed to be, and if it's not there, well, then if you don't want that link here or there being displayed, you can right click on it and say remove from the list. So if I click off and I right click over here, I can remove it from the list, and you get other options. You can also delete it, but I'm not going to do that. Let's come back down here and right click so I can show you that you get the pin option as well to pin it. So it doesn't matter if you've never opened it up, it'll always stay right there. Even as you open up several hundreds of other Excel files, they'll be rolled off because it can only contain so many in the jump list here in the recent section. Let's go ahead and unpin it, and it's back down to the recents. Let me close out of that by clicking off. And then if you need to find a workbook and it's not one of the recent ones and it's not pinned, then go ahead and click on the link Open Other Workbook. And then browse on your computer to find it, and then select it and click Open, and it'll pull up. But to keep it simple, let's go ahead and just open up a blank workbook and start from scratch. Click on it. Hey, there we go. So here's the program interface. Every time you open up Excel, when you open up a blank workbook, this is what it's going to look like. And I want to give you a brief overview of what you're looking at here by starting up at the top, going from left to right, and then from top to bottom. So first off, in the upper left-hand corner, you have what's called the Quick Access Toolbar. And it's called that because you can quickly access any commands on it in a single click, like this command here, the save. When you hover over it, you can see the pop-up. It tells you that when you click on it, it's going to save the workbook. And it also has the shortcut keys, if you like using those, Control-S to save the workbook. You have a few other commands that aren't available yet because we haven't done anything in the workbook. And I'll show you in a later training video how you can customize this Quick Access Toolbar to be able to add and remove commands to and from it. And then over to the right, you have the title bar, and it's got a generic name there, Book 1. But when you save it, you can update this and call it something else, something that's pertinent to what you have down below in your worksheet that you're working on. Maybe it's your workbook for the year 2019, and you got one for each year that you're working on as far as accounting goes. Well, you can go ahead and update it there. And then over to the right of that, you've got the name of the program in case if you forgot what program you're in. It's Excel. And then over to the right, you've got your ribbon display options, which we'll cover later. And then you've got your window options to minimize down to the taskbar, to restore down, or to close out of the program altogether. Now below that, you have what's called the ribbon. And on the ribbon, you got a bunch of tabs. And on these tabs, you have a bunch of commands. So like the Home tab contains the most popular commands, or the most used commands. Like, well, you've got your B for bold and I for italics. And then for your Insert tab, it's for inserting things like pictures, shapes, charts, spark lines, and you got your page layout when it comes to working with your pages. Let's go back to the Home tab. Now you can imagine that you don't want to put all the commands in one tab because, well, that ribbon would be pretty huge and come too far down. I'd have to scroll down to be able to work in my workbook, and so it's broken up. And so on the Home tab and on all the other tabs, these commands are broken up into groups. So you can quickly identify what you're looking for here, like when it comes to your font. If you want to be able to format your text with B for bold, I for italics, or to give it some color, and that's all part of the font group, formatting your font. You also have the clipboard for cutting, copying, and pasting your data, alignments within the cell, numbers, styles, and so on. And then some of these groups will have a little extra button in the lower right-hand corner. It's called the Expandable Dialog Box button, because when there's more commands, the ones that aren't as popular, they'll be available when you click on that little arrow to open up a new window in here. And you'll see that you get the same commands here, like when you want to make it bold, it's right there, B for bold, and also for italics and the size, but also some additional commands like the effects here that you don't see here in the group. Not as used as much, and so it's here, and plus can't cram everything into this group here. Otherwise we're looking at huger monitors, high resolution. In any case, you can go ahead and check it, and you get a preview of it, and it will create a strike through or a line through whatever data you have by selecting it and clicking OK. I'm going to click Cancel. And then below that, over on the left-hand side, you have what's called the name box. It tells you the name of the cell that you're currently in. So down below in the worksheet, you've got your column headers. That's alphabetical. So for each column, you have a letter beginning with A, B, C, D, E, F, and it goes on. Well, I'll show you in just a minute how far we can go. And then you've got your row headers by numbers, numerically that is, sorted beginning with 1 and going down to, well, I'll show you in just a minute how far you can go down. And so whenever you click and select a different cell, and you're like, okay, what cell am I in for reference, so I can, well, when it comes to formulas and functions, be able to reference other cells that I need to pull in here. You want to know what column you're in, and you can see it's highlighted, H, and then what row, go over to the left-hand side, and it's highlighted 8. Now, a quicker way to do that is just to look up here and go, oh, column H, row 8, or the cell's name is H8. Great, go ahead and click off. You don't have to like look in both directions, just come up here diagonally and we're in cell L12. You can also use it to jump to a cell. Like if I want to go to B2, just go ahead and type it, hit enter, and hey, wasn't that fun? There's other things you can do with the name box we'll cover later on, but right now let's keep it simple here. And as I promised, if you want to know how many columns are here, well, let's use the scroll bars. Let's go ahead and use the horizontal scroll bar by clicking on the arrow to go over to, oh, it goes on forever. That's going to take a while. But you can see I've moved past the A column. I'm in beginning with J all the way to X. It can only contain so many columns here. And I can click and hold the scroll bar, and when I hold it down, you see that little pop-up that says J. That's the column that's currently visible on the left-hand side. So if I want to see column H, let go. Oh, I have to update that there and get it over. There we go. Okay, so there's column H. So that's what that's for. And you can also do it horizontally. Scroll down, and we can go down to row 25. And you can also click and drag the scroll bar to scroll up past several rows really fast. And you can see row 8 is now visible here in that pop-up. So to be able to find out how many columns, how many rows you have, well, go ahead and select a cell and then hit the End key on the keyboard, END. When you hit that, down below in the status bar, you can see it's in end mode. When you hover over it, it says use the arrow keys to quickly move to the edge of the data range. Well, we don't have any data, so how big is the range here when it contains no data? After you hit the End key on the keyboard, hit the right arrow key and it goes all the way to the end. I have no columns past XFD. I don't know how many columns that is, 200, 300, I'll let you count. And then for the rows, let's hit the End key again and hit the down arrow key, and whee, look at all those rows, over 1 million. Great. Hey, let me know if you ever fill up an entire spreadsheet, because that would be amazing. And then if you run out of room in this worksheet here, you can click on the plus sign and create a second worksheet, third worksheet, fourth, and so on. So now to quickly get back to cell A1, of course I can come up in the name box and click in it and type in A1, or the shortcut keys are Control Home. And it takes me right to cell A1. Fabulous. Now to the right of that, you have what's called a formula bar. So when you start entering in text or data, formulas, functions within a cell, and the cell's yay big, and you want to keep it that big to keep it uniform and organized within your spreadsheet here, and you got a lot of text in there, a lot of data, well, select the cell and then come up here and you can see you got a lot of space there to look and view everything within that cell. You can also click on the More button or the Expand button to open it up. And if you hover over the bottom border of that, you see how I got arrows pointing up and down? You can then go ahead and click and drag that to be able to view more lines within the formula bar. And of course you can go ahead and collapse that. So that way, if you want to be able to not click in the cell and then use the arrow keys to scroll around, well, just come up in here after you select the cell and do your work in there, and you'll be able to view more of it as well. And then down below there, we already talked about our column headers, the labels for the columns, the header for each column, A, B, C, D, the alphabet, and then for the rows, numerically, 1, 2, 3. And then you got your cells, and I'll show you in a later training video how you can navigate around the environment here besides just clicking and selecting a cell. And the main purposes for using Excel, the spreadsheet, is basically two things: to perform functions, calculations, or to create a database. A mini database, like you could go ahead and column C, type in the label for that column, like right here on row 6. Maybe you're keeping track of clients. You can type in their first name, last name, street address, phone number, and so on. The labels here. And then underneath first name, you type in the first name of the first client, the second name, third name, all within that column under the label here, first name, and then their last names and so on. So you can do that. You can also insert charts, and we'll go over a lot of the functionalities and cool features of Excel. So either as a database or to perform complex calculations and functions. And then down below our main window here, the worksheet, you have what's called the status bar, and right now it's in ready mode. And we saw that when we hit the End key, it told us that something was about to happen, or we could actually go to the end of a data range by hitting the arrow key. And it will give you other prompts based upon how you have this customized. How do you customize the status bar? Give it a right click anywhere on it, and hey, there you go. Look at that. And I'll have to hover over that little arrow to be able to scroll down. And then if I want to go to the top, hover over that arrow, but again, my screen resolution is small. So you can actually see more and actually see what I'm seeing here without squinting. And you see here where it says sum, that's active. In other words, when I select a range of cells, 2 or more cells, and I have numbers in them, it'll automatically give me the calculation, the sum total of the cells that I have selected that contain numbers. Isn't that fancy? If I don't want to see that pop up down below when I select a bunch of cells that have numbers, just uncheck it and it won't display it. If you do want to see it, then check it And also you got other options here like the lowest value within a range of cells or the highest, the maximum value within that range. And we'll cover those. That'll be fun later on. Let's go ahead and click off. And then over to the right, you've got the different views that are available. You have normal, page layout, and page break preview, which can also be found up here on the View tab. So you can see in the workbook views, you got the default, the normal view, page break, and page layout. So if you don't want to come up here and waste an extra click by clicking on the View tab to get to a different view, then go ahead and change it down here. Let me click on the Home tab. And then over to the right, you've got the zoom features. So right now when you type in numbers here, if they're too big, too small, then you can go ahead and click and drag to zoom out, and ooh, that gets tiny, but I get more rows. Oh, that's fun. And then we can go ahead and go the other way. And if you want to get really particular and you want to get to like maybe to 129%, go ahead and click on that and it opens up the zoom window. So you can customize that, and oh, let's do 62. Hit enter and okay, that's pretty tiny. I'm going to go back to 100%. Click on it and let's do 100 and click OK, and we're back to where we started. Oh, I'm in cell A1. Now we're back to where we started. I want to show you how you can now customize your Excel environment. Like for example, every time you create a new workbook, you're always going to get the same font type, Calabrese, size 11, and one worksheet. If you'd like to shake that up and have a new different default font for your new workbooks, size, and worksheets, then let's go up and go backstage, click on File, and I have to scroll down because my screen resolution is pretty small, and select Options here. And you can see on the left hand side you have all the categories, and by default the general category is selected, so you just need to come over here. Of course I have to scroll, and you want to go down to the section called When Creating New Workbooks, because here we can change the default font. Now the default font here says Calabrese, but over here it says body font. What's that about? Well, the body font is a theme font, and if you want to learn more about themes, I recommend that you watch my themes training video. But to keep it short, or as short as I can, a theme font allows you to go ahead when you're using that feature to update everything within your workbook from one font to another in a single click. That's what a theme font will do for you. So how does that coincide that this is a theme font when we got body font selected? Look at the keyword body, okay? When you click on the drop down arrow, you got all the other different fonts that don't have body in it or have headings, but I'm focused on the body, okay? So keep that in mind, click cancel, and come up here and click on the font, and you'll notice theme fonts. You have two, right? For your headings and the body of the text. There you go, body. So it's a theme font when you saw the body font there, meaning that when that's selected, Calabrese is the only font that's available. And you're like, oh, I don't want to use Calabrese, I want to use something else. That's fine if you want to use the theme font feature to update every cell with a different type of font in a single click. If you want to change your fonts here, don't go outside of your theme fonts. But you only have two, right? Well, to be able to choose other theme fonts, you can't do it here. Let me click off. You have to go to the Page Layout tab to the Themes group, because there you have your theme fonts. In fact, to give you a brief overview, a theme is made up of three elements: colors, fonts, and effects. So to keep it simple, fonts, when you click on it, there you go, you can choose something else. Now your theme fonts are going to have your headings and the body of the message. So if you ever convert a cell into a heading style that's larger, bigger, different type of font, or slightly different, that's what it's going to look like. As opposed to the rest of it, the body of the document is going to be a different type of font, but not so different that's jarring. And that's what themes will do for you, to find complementary colors, fonts, and effects that aren't so different that it really messes with the eye here. So if you want to be able to update everything within your workbook from one font to another, go ahead and choose it down below. And if you don't find it, you can customize it, which we'll cover in a later training video. So going back to our file, down to Options, General tab selected by default, just come down here and you change it from body font. You can't use the theme font because it won't update all the fonts in your workbook in a single click. So you could choose Arial, in which case every time you create a new workbook, and I'm going to change it here, it's going to be Arial and I can't use the themes. But if you want, you can mix and match it. In other words, you can go ahead and choose Arial here and then choose a range of cells that you want to convert to, well, on the Home tab, theme font. So that would be dynamic. That allows you to go ahead on the page layout and choose a different type of font for that range. It'll update that, but everything else that's not a theme font, that doesn't have, well, let me show you, body, as we saw in the Home tab, that will stay the same. Or you can just go ahead and eliminate it altogether and not use theme fonts. It's up to you. But again, watch my themes training video. This gets a little bit in depth here, but I want to give you enough to give you an idea of where this is going. But again, watch my training video on that. So let me click and drag the title bar back so I'm centered. Click on font size, go to 10. And then default view for new sheets, normal view, you got page break, preview, page layout view. We'll cover those in a later training video. Right now I want to keep it normal. And then include how many sheets. Let's do 5. Click OK. And then it tells me, please close and restart Microsoft Excel so that the font changes can take effect. Okay, that sounds reasonable. I'm going to go ahead and click Okie dokie, close out of here, come down below and click on Excel. Now, of course, if I already have an Excel workbook opened and I want to open up another one, you're not going to have that button to open it up. You can right-click on the one that's already open and click on Excel again, and it will open up 2 workbooks. But since I already have one in startup mode, it's not going to do it again. And then go ahead and click on blank workbook, and well, I'm going to talk about the startup screen in just a minute and how we can customize that. So when you click on Excel, it'll actually take you right past the startup screen and into a blank workbook here. So do I have 5 worksheets down below? I do. And the type of font, it's not body or Calibri, which is a theme font, or it still is a theme font. And how do you know? Well, click on the drop down arrow and you can see right there it's got body and it's a theme font. So for every cell that's in my worksheet here in the workbook, anything that I select is going to be Arial size 10. So if I go ahead and I say, okay, this cell I don't want it to be static, I want it to be dynamic and use it as a theme font, then just come up here, change it to the body, unless it's a heading, change it to the body here, and you can see it's Calibri, it's now a theme font. So I can go to the page layout tab, click on fonts, and choose a different theme font, and it'll update just that cell. But to make it more beneficial, instead of just a single cell, if you had a bunch of cells throughout the worksheet here and on, well, other worksheets, that are going to be dynamic, that you want those theme fonts, it'll update all of them in a single click. So that can be very helpful. Let me go ahead and hit my undo. So I can undo this. When I click on the Home tab, it's no longer Calibri, it's back to Arial. So you make mistakes, don't forget your undo. Oh, that comes in so handy. And if you want to redo your mistakes, well, then go ahead and hit redo and it's back to Calibri, but I'll undo. Okay, let's go backstage again. Click on File. Let's go down to Options. And we just went over this, Arial. Okay, I just want one worksheet. Let me update that here. Again, we're still on the general category here. That's the default. If we want to move to other categories, go ahead and select them. And then down below that, let's go to the next section, personalize your copy of Microsoft Office. Let me go ahead and scroll down sort of a bit more up at the top here. And notice how it doesn't say Excel, because what you do in here updates all the Office applications. Like for the username, it's got my login, training, and I want to update that. And the reason being is because whenever I create a new workbook, it's going to tag that name as the author. If I'm okay with that, then I can leave it as training. But not only does it do that, but it ties that name to comments that you insert and also identifies you when sharing your workbook with others. So let's go ahead and type in my name here so I can get credit. And then down below, you can use what you have when you sign into Microsoft Office if you have a Microsoft Office account, which I'll go over in just a minute. Or if you want to always use the values that you have here, regardless of what you have when you sign into Microsoft Office, then go ahead and check the box. I'm not going to do that, so I'll uncheck it. And then the Office background here, well, that's this right up at the top of the ribbon, and that's only available when you sign into Microsoft. So let me go ahead and close out if you have a Microsoft account. If you don't have one, then you won't see my lunchbox here, which prior to this, when Microsoft wanted to let you know that you were connected to their servers, they had a bunch of lines and circles and arrows. It looked kind of like spooky, like it was some cyborg sci-fi movie, like you're all connected. Well, you are here, but hey, who's afraid of a happy toast or some juice boxes or an apple? So that's to let you know that you're signed in, as well as seeing your name here. So I'm signed in. If I click on it, I can go ahead and switch accounts. Or if your name's not there and you want to go ahead and create a Microsoft account or log in, well, for me, I'd have to click on Switch Accounts. And I can come down here. When you click on Sign In, it'll ask you, let me click on Add Account. It'll say, okay, give us your email address. You don't have one? Well, create one. Go ahead and click on Create One and then follow all the prompts in the window and make sure you're okay with the terms of use and privacy and their policies and everything. And if you're okay with that, you create one, type in an email address, click Next, type in your password, and you will log in. Once you log in, then you can come here and go Backstage and go down to Options. I'm picking up the speed a bit. I assume you're okay with this. And then you can go ahead and choose an office background. Like instead of lunchbox, we can go to stars. Ooh, let's see what stars look like and click OK. And ooh, they're chunky stars. Oh, that's fun. Let's go back, File, scroll down to Options. And I like lunchbox because that's fun. And then below that you have the office theme, which is colorful, and that means colorful for like Excel it's going to be green, for Word it's going to be blue, and Access is going to be red. So you can change that if you don't want it to be too colorful, and maybe go to white. Now when you do that, remember it's Office, it's not Excel. So if I go ahead and I select white and I click OK, it updates it up at the top, and oh, now I can see everybody here, the juice box and the apple. In any case, I get distracted. It also updates in Microsoft Word Access. So if I come down below, I already have Microsoft Word open, and I right click and I go to the program and I open it up, left click. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I got to do a blank document to open that up, and hey, there you go. It's not blue up at the top, it's white. And I can do it also in other programs. So the same steps. Click on File, and I got to scroll down to Options. General tab selected by default. And there's the office theme white. I can click and go back to colorful. Click OK, that goes back to blue, close out, and that's back to green. Okay, next, when you open up Excel, you get that start screen. If you don't want that start screen and you want to jump right into a blank workbook, then let's go Backstage again, click File, and go down to Options. And then still in the General category, I need to scroll down to the bottom here. In the Startup Options section, right down here, show the start screen when this application starts, uncheck it. And then click OK. And then close out. And I'm not going to save it, so next time I open up Excel, let me come down below and click on Excel. It goes right past the start screen and right into a blank workbook. Awesome, I'm ready to go. And then finally, when you're done making some changes here or adding some data and you want to save your workbook, when you come up here and click on the Save button, it's going to, when you save it for the first time, perform a Save As, where it's going to ask you two questions. It'll open up the Save As window, and it's going to ask you what name do you want to give it, because the title here, Book 1, I mean, what's that about? Give it something pertinent to what you've got going on down below. Maybe it's your sales chart, so call it Sales Charts for 2019. And then also it's going to ask you where do you want to save it. So once you answer both those questions, next time you click on the Save button, it won't ask you those again because it knows its name, it's Sales for 2019, and also where it is on your computer. So when I click on Save, it takes me backstage. I don't know about you, but for me, if I don't want to go backstage and I want to open up the Save As window, well, to do that I have to come down below and bypass saving it in other places and click on Browse so I can save it to my computer, and there's the Save As window. That takes too many steps. I don't want to do that. So I can go ahead and close out of that, and I'm backstage. Let me go down to Options. And then over in the categories, select Save. And then right here, Save Workbook section, go to this box right here, Don't show the backstage when opening or saving files with keyboard shortcuts. Well, it's not just with shortcuts, but it's using the mouse too. So when I check that to not show the backstage, and go ahead and click OK. When I click Save, is it going to take me backstage? No, it takes me to the Save As window. So when it comes to saving to my desktop, I can save myself a click and just go right to it without having to go backstage. Now, where is it saving? It wants by default to save it in the Documents folder. If I don't want it to be saved in the Documents folder, but maybe always in another folder or on my desktop, well, let's go backstage again. Click on File, to Options, and we want to go to the Save category, still in the Save Workbook section, and then come down below to the default local file location. So by default, it wants to save it in the Documents folder, logged in as the training user. If I want it to be saved to my desktop, every time I click Save to point right to the desktop, well, then I can go Desktop. But if I want it in the Exercises folder that's on my desktop, okay, I need a backslash, and it's just above the Enter key on the keyboard, and type in exercises. Make sure you spell it correctly, otherwise it's not going to work. And click OK. Then click Save. Where does it go? To the Exercises folder on the desktop. Oh, happy days. Let's go ahead and close out of there. And know that if you need to go back and make any of those changes, again, File to Options in the Save category. And I'm going to do that right now, to Options, to Save, because I'd rather just save it to the desktop. Like that. Okay? Click Save. Now it's going right to the desktop. Beautiful. So in the upper left-hand corner, you have the Quick Access Toolbar, and it's called that because you can quickly access any command on it in a single click, as opposed to, well, if you have to go to another tab to access the command, that's one too many clicks. I have to click on it and then find the command and click on it there. Instead, I can just stay on the Home tab and be able to add that command that's found on the Formulas tab up here on the Quick Access Toolbar. Which brings up a good point. How do you add commands to the Quick Access Toolbar? You can do it one of many ways. One way is to click on its corresponding drop-down arrow, and you get a list of some of the more common commands that are used, like create a new workbook, open up a workbook. Go ahead and select Open, adds the Open command. When you click on it, it opens up a window to open up a workbook. Cool. Let's go ahead and close out. And then click on the arrow again, and if you want to be able to see more commands, well, there you go. Go ahead and click on More. Opens up the Excel options, which you can also access by going backstage from File down to Options. Opens up this window. You just need to select the Quick Access Toolbar, which is already highlighted because we accessed it from the Quick Access Toolbar drop-down menu there. And so you can see we've got popular commands, and then over to the right-hand side, anything that's listed there is going to be on the Quick Access Toolbar. And so when you look through the popular commands, there's not too many. If you're like, well, I'd like some other command, is it available? If you want to see a list of all the commands that are available, then click on the drop-down arrow and go to All Commands. There you go. It's sorted, well, numerically here, and then it goes alphabetically. So go ahead and scroll to the command that you'd like to add, like maybe a quick print. That way, instead of clicking on Print and going backstage to the Print Preview in the Print window, you can just bypass that and it'll go right to your printer. Although you got to be pretty confident to do that you got everything laid out correctly, because you don't get that preview to double check before you actually print it off. In any case, to go ahead and add it over to the Quick Access Toolbar, this window here, which will add it up there, you can do it one of a couple of ways. You can either select it, come over here, click on Add, and if you made a mistake with it highlighted, you can click Remove. You can also, let me select it here, double click, and it adds it over to the right hand side as well. And so let's go ahead and add a few more commands here. I'm just going to randomly just double click and add a few, and show you another command that you can add. It's called the separator, and it's all the way up at the top. When we first came here, it's also under popular commands, and what that does, wherever you add the separator, it'll put a line in between those commands. So if I double click, double click, double click, I have 3 separators. So the way this is going to lay out on the Quick Access Toolbar, from top to bottom, is going to be laid out over here from left to right. So Save is going to be first, and if you don't want Save to be first, select it, and go ahead and push the down arrow. Now Undo is going to be first. And then if you'd like to be able to give yourself some more space in between the commands, because you come up here and you just quickly click on a command and, well, they're not too close, but if you want some more space, you can use the separators, or you can also use the separator, be able to group your commands, kind of like what you see here. Those are separators, separating the font group from the clipboard and also from the alignment group, these lines here. So let's go ahead and move these separators around and go up, 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 up. Oh, I'm going to move the Save up. And let's just separate that from the Undo. And then the separator here, up, up, up. Undo, redo are together, separated from the others by the separators. And we'll do one more here from the 3 here to the last 2. Then click OK, and let's take a gander. Hey, there you go. So we've got our separators just like we have down below on the ribbon. Separates it, gives us a little bit more space, and you can add as many separators as you want together. So if you want several more lines to be able to, distance from one command to the next, go for it. And so I've got, you could say, 1 group here, 2, 3, 4 groups, 3 separators. Now another way to add a command or commands to the Quick Access Toolbar is that if you're on a tab and you like a command like B for bold, go ahead and right click on it and say you want to add that to the Quick Access Toolbar. Left click, and there it is. It's right there. So you don't have to be on the Home tab. If you're typically on like the Data tab, You don't have to go, oh, I got to go ahead and do the B for bold thing. Let me come up here, click on the Home tab, and then click on B. Just come up here and click on B right there. You can also add groups of commands to the Quick Access Toolbar. Like if you want to be able to add the entire font group, right-click in a blank area, and then add that to the Quick Access Toolbar. Now, it needs an icon to represent that group, and so it chose the letter A. So don't think, well, when I hover over it, that it's the font color, because when you click on this, you get color, right? But when you come up here and you click on the one that represents the group, you're not going to get font color, you're going to get the entire group. Cool. And then you can go ahead and choose your font color from there. Okay, it's looking like a mess, right? So do you want to go ahead and clean this up? Well, let's do it. You can right-click and remove those commands. And remove all of them as quickly as possible, including the lines, and they're just disappearing, and they're going, almost done, and gone. First thing I want to go over is the ribbon display options. In other words, if you want more space vertically and you don't want to see the ribbon at all, maybe the commands or the tabs or both, then come up here, as I briefly went over in the Excel 2019 introductory training video, and click on ribbon display options, and the default is to show the tabs and commands. If you want to go ahead and just show the tabs, click on it, the commands disappear. So when you're working in your spreadsheet here and you want to be able to execute a command from the ribbon, just come up here, click on it, it pops open for you to go ahead and click on a command or click off, and then it closes back up. So you can either go ahead and do it that way, and let's come up here and go back to show tabs and commands, or as a shortcut, you can just double click on the tab, any one of these tabs, and it collapses. Then double click to bring it back up. Or come over to the far right and you get that little angle pointing up. You can see when I hover over it, it'll collapse the ribbon, or you can use the shortcut keys Control F1 to collapse, Control F1 to expand. And then the last option, let's click on it, and it's to hide everything. Click on it and you totally destroyed. It's all gone. You're going to have to reinstall Excel. No, I'm kidding. To be able to bring it back up when you're working in your spreadsheet here to run a command, then just come up to the top of the screen, tap it, it brings the green bar up, click on the green bar, and there you go. It pops open for you to go ahead and click on a command or click off, and then it closes again, or it hides. So let's come back up here, tap the top, click on it, and let's go back to the way it was, show tabs and commands. Next, I want to show you how you can customize the ribbon. So for example, on the Home tab, you've got all these commands. Well, what if you've got some additional commands you'd like to add to it? Well, you can't add them to the default groups here, but you can add an additional group and add your commands to that on the Home tab. And if the Home tab gets too crowded, you can actually remove some of these groups, or all of them. Or better yet, you can actually add your own custom tab with commands on that tab, like a tab with your name on it. That sounds pretty fancy. To do that, let's go ahead and right-click anywhere on the ribbon and go down to Customize the Ribbon. And it brings up the Excel options, which you can also access by going Backstage, File to Excel Options. Once here, you'll want to select the Customize Ribbon, but because we did it by right-clicking on the ribbon, it takes us right to it. You can see there's a list of, well, the popular commands you can add to the tabs. And if you want to be able to see all the commands, click on the drop-down arrow and choose All Commands. Sorted numerically, then alphabetically. And then over to the right, before we add any commands, let's break this down. Well, you have your tabs that have these boxes that are checked, and those that aren't checked aren't being displayed. So new to Excel 2019 is the Draw tab. Let's go ahead and see that. And let's uncheck all these others. I know it's horrifying, but because I use those others, but I want to show you, and Developer. So what I'm going to see here when I click OK is just the Developer tab, the Draw tab, and the Home tab. Why wouldn't I see the Background Removal tab or the others that are checked? Well, that's proprietary to whatever I'm working on at the time, that it'll pull that up. And since I'm not working on background removal, it's not going to pop open. But if I was and I unchecked it, it wouldn't reveal it. So before I go ahead and click OK and obliterate all the other tabs and just show the three, the Home, the Draw, and the Developer, let's go ahead and customize one of these tabs, like the default Home tab. So if I want to go ahead, let me expand the clipboard group. You can see it's right there. And I want to be able to add a command to it, so I select it, and I come down here and I select a command and I click Add. It says, you can't do this. You got to create your own custom group. All right, I can do that. So To add a custom group to the Home tab, I can go ahead and come down here and click on New Group. And there it is. Now it's a generic name, so if you don't like that name, then go ahead and click on Rename. And instead of New Group, how about something fancy? Well, you can type in your name, but I prefer something fancy. And then you can choose a symbol that represents that group. So as you recall in the previous training video, when you right-clicked on a group to add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, it chose a symbol from that group to represent it. Well, here you can go ahead and choose a symbol like, hey, we're always happy here at Dreamforce, so we choose a happy face and click OK. So there's the name of the group, and it's coming right after the clipboard group, but before the font group. And you can go ahead and rearrange this by clicking on the up arrow. And so now it goes clipboard group, then font group, and then it'll be my custom fancy group. Or better yet, we can select it if I don't use that group at all and it's just annoying, gets in the way, and remove it. I know this is even more horrifying because I use all of these groups, but I want to make a point. So we only have 3 tabs that are going to show, and on the Home tab, we only have 2 groups, the default group, clipboard, and my fancy group, which doesn't have any commands on it, but let's go ahead and add a command. So with it selected, I'm just going to come over here and just choose something and click add and add. And so you can see you can add commands there. And how about we add one more tab, a custom tab. We got a custom group on a default tab. Let's go ahead and add our own. So instead of just 3 tabs, we'll have 4. So let's go ahead and click on New Tab. And well, there you go, New Tab. That's generic. Let's go ahead and rename it, call it something else, and call it my Spiffy tab, because hey, everything we do here at Dreamforce is spiffy. And click OK. And then by default it gives you a generic group name, and you can rename that and call it something also spiffy, or just say it's going to be my format group. And then choose a symbol to represent that, and then click OK, another happy symbol. Or maybe I want to rename it again and maybe do something different. So when I add it to the Quick Access Toolbar, I don't have 2 happinesses on there for my fancy group. And this one right here, the formats, let's just scroll down. Oh, a butterfly, sure. Click OK. And then let's go ahead and add some commands to this group here, and we'll just scroll down, and well, I'm just going to start pulling because you'll find what you're looking for, and you just have to add it there, and add it there. And you can add additional groups, so we can have 2 groups on here. Let's go ahead and click on New Group, and then you get the idea. Rename it to something different, and then choose, oh, a bell, OK. And then go ahead and add some commands there, add, and add. All right, are you ready? We did a lot of work here, so I'll go over it after we click OK. Oh, wow, look at that. OK. So we got the Home tab, we got our default group that we didn't change, and then we added our fancy group. And when I right-click in a blank area to add that to the Quick Access Toolbar, it adds a happy face. Oh, I'm happy. And then we have our own custom tab, Spiffy, and we've got the format group, and then we have the different group. And when I right-click on one of those to add that to the Quick Access Toolbar, you got the butterfly that represents the group, and this one is going to be the bell. So when you're on any other tab, and you want to be able to access that group without going to the other tab, click on it. That way, hopefully, you can cut down on some extra clicks when most of the commands that you use is going to be on the Home tab here. Let me go ahead and click off. Now remember, new to Excel 2019 is the Draw tab. Ooh, that looks fun. We'll have to go over that later. And then we got the Developer tab. That by default isn't displayed. Now, if you're thinking to yourself like I am, I totally destroyed my work. How do I reset this back to the way it was? Well, let's go ahead and right-click anywhere on the ribbon to customize the ribbon. And down below for the reset options, you get 2. You can reset only the selected ribbon tab or all customizations. So if I come up here and I'm like, I'm good with everything else but the Home tab, I really got to have everything back to the way it was. Select it, reset it, and only the selected tab. Click OK. Everything's still up there except the Home tab. Removed my custom group and put it back to the way it was. Fabulous. Okay, how about resetting everything? Oh, then you notice up here I got rid of that icon because that custom group is now gone. So if I right-click anywhere on the ribbon to customize it again, and I reset all customizations, it lets me know it's going to delete all ribbon and Quick Access Toolbar customizations for this program. Yes. And then you can go ahead and click OK. and it's back to the way it was. I don't have those groups, I don't have the draw or the developer tab, and I've got my other tabs back. Whew, that was close. What you're looking at here is my Dreamforce payroll worksheet. Well, it's a mini database where I keep track of my employees with their first name, last name, social security number, and so on. I want to show you how you can navigate around your worksheet, the least of which is you can use the mouse by clicking here, here, here. You can do it that way, or you can go ahead and use the arrow keys on the keyboard to go left, right, up, or down, or you can use the tab key to go to the right, hold down the shift key and hit tab and go to the left. Well, you have your scroll arrows, and then you've got the scroll bar here, the vertical and the horizontal. So if I want to go down, I can do it one of a couple of ways. I can either go row by row for each click, or I can click and drag and hold the scroll bar and jump down really fast. And you can see that I still have the scroll bar held, because if you can see that little pop-up, row 56, that's the top row that I'm going to be viewing when I get to the end of my database. And you can see it's right there, row 56, and then down at the bottom, that's where the database ends. If I want to go beyond that, then I can hit the down arrow, but I can't do it by clicking and dragging the scroll bar because it's at the end of the data range. You can do that way for vertical. You can also do it for horizontal. Well, we can't go left. We can go click and drag to go right, but I can't go any further over to the right because it's at the end of the data range. And I can go ahead and continue by clicking the right arrow several times. And then to go back to cell A1, you can hold down the control key and hit home. It'll take you there. Or if I click off somewhere, you can come up here and click in the name box and type in A1, hit enter. We covered that in an earlier training video. And then the shortcut keys Control End will take you to the end of the data range. Control End if you want to get to the very last cell within the data range. That is, if the data range is built correctly and you don't have empty rows or empty columns, so it can see a pattern here and go, oh, this looks like it's the data range, and that's going to be the end of it, the last column, and the last row. Next, if you want to be able to get to the top of a range, to the left-hand side, the right, or the bottom really fast, you can use these shortcuts. Like with the cell that I have selected here, it's highlighted in green. If I hover over the border of it, I get a four-way arrow. If I double-click really fast at the top border, it's going to take me to the top of the data range. Double-click on the left-hand side to the leftmost part of the data range, then right to the right and the bottom to the bottom. So hover over it, get the four-way arrow, double-click to the top of the data range, double-click at the bottom to the bottom of the data range, hover over the left-hand side. It's a little bit small there, but double-click to the left-hand side of the data range, first column, and then double-click to the right to column I, the end of the data range, well, for the columns here. You can also use the shortcut keys if you're that kind of person. Go ahead and hold down the Control key, hit the up arrow to go to the top of the data range, Control arrow down to go to the bottom, Control arrow left, and of course Control arrow right to go to the left and right side at the end of those ranges, the beginning or the end. Speaking of which, you can use the End key. As you recall in an earlier training video, when we had no data here and I hit the End key, when I hit the right arrow key or down, it'll take me to the very end, the last row, which is over 1 million, or the last column, which is XF, something like that. But if you have a data range here, you want to move within the range, as you can see when I hit the End key down below on the status bar, it's in End mode. So after I hit the End key and I hit the up arrow, it's just like holding down the Control key and hitting the up arrow key, or I can hit End and the down arrow key, or I can hit End, go to the left, and hit End and hit the right arrow key to go to the right. So you've got quite a few options there. It's your flavor. And then you've got the Home key. If you hit Home, it'll take you to the first column. So if I'm way over here, somewhere out in Booney Land, and I need to go to the first column, Home, and I'm home. First column there. And then if you want to be able to page down or page to the right, you can use the page up or page down keys on the keyboard. So if I go ahead and I hit page up, it goes from the first row that was visible, which was 56, and bumps it all the way down so it's still visible as the last row when I hit page up. So there's 39. If I hit page up again, 39 is going to be the last row. So I have some sort of reference going, oh, that was the first, now that's the last. And then we can hit page down. So 39 is going to be up the top when I hit page down. And then 56, when I hit page down, is going to be at the top from 56 down to, well, the last there, row 72, or the employee numbered 68. And then if I want to be able to page over to the right-hand side, just go ahead and hold down the Alt key and hit page down, and it goes over several columns. So there's column N, Alt, page down, goes over to column AC. The last one's AQ, so if I do Alt page down, well, if I go back just one, there's AQ. So that gets wiped out. So whatever you see over here, BE, the next one is going to be BF. So if I come back here, there's BE, and I do Alt page down, there's BF. So it won't give you a point of reference when you're going horizontally here. And so Alt page down or Alt page up, page up, page up to get back to where we started with column A. Or I could have hit the home key and it would have taken me right back to column A. And how about if we have extra worksheets down below? Well, we just got one, but if I click the plus sign, the plus sign, the plus sign, I got several worksheets and I want to be able to navigate from one worksheet to the next. Well, I can click on it, use the mouse, right? Or the shortcut keys are Control page down, and it goes to sheet 1, page down. I'm still holding the Control key, and then page down again, sheet 3. Then Control page up, page up, page up, and I'm back to where we started. Okay, let's go ahead and do Control Home to go to the beginning. Now, if you need to select more than one cell, well, to select a cell to apply some sort of formatting to it in this example, like Klinger, come up here, click on B for bold to make them bold. But if you want to make more than one cell bold, to select more than one cell, well, you can click and drag. You can click and drag to select a range of cells, and whatever's highlighted is where you're going to be able to click on the command and make it bold. Now, when it comes to selecting a range of cells, well, if I select one cell, you want to make sure you get the white cross, because if you hover over the border and you get, let me do it right here, a 4-way arrow, and you click and drag and you let go, it wants to move what you selected over to another cell. We don't want to move, which is a later training video. Click cancel. We just want to highlight. So you get 3 crosses. You have the white cross, which is the selection cross to select more than one cell. Click and drag, you can select as long as you got the white cross. If you're on the border of it, don't click and drag because that's not the white cross, that's the black 4-way arrow. Also, if you're over the bottom right hand corner and you see a black cross, don't click and drag. That's for a later training video. That's not going to allow you to select, well, from this point here, that cell, to down and over, or just straight down, or go straight over, like so, the range of cells. So C7, column C, row 7, over to column H, still the same row, row 7. So you'd say column C through HC. Everything in between, that same row, has been selected. You can do it that way, or if you want to select non-linearly, like Simpson, and you want to go down and select Wiggins, hold down the Control key and click, and click, and click, 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 click. In fact, you can even click and drag while you're doing that. And you got non-linear selections here, so you can go ahead and click on B for bold, and it'll apply the bold formats to everything you have selected here. Oh, and new to Excel 2019 is that if you want to reselect things, you don't have to click off to deselect everything and then start all over again. Instead, you can hold down the Control key just as we select non-linearly to deselect those things that you no longer want to keep or have highlighted. So for example, I can click and drag and select that range and poof, it disappears. And I can go ahead and deselect that, poof, that disappears, and I still have my selection, so I can reselect it and then go ahead and click and drag and reselect that range, and we're back to where we started. And then to go ahead and deselect, just click off somewhere and you got one cell selected now. You can also do block selections. So if I want to be able to select from cell D9, column D, row 9, down to, right here, let's say, instead of clicking and dragging to go down there, I can just leave it selected there, come down, and hold down the Shift key and click in cell F16, and it selects from that point and everything in between with that Shift key held down to where I clicked. Cool. You can, of course, select everything within the worksheet. Let me click somewhere to deselect. By the shortcut keys Control A selects everything. And if you're wondering about that white cell right there going, hey, it didn't select that, well, we'll talk about that later on, but that's of everything you have selected is the starter cell of the selection. And what that means is that if I want to be able to use other features in Excel, or I just want to input data, when I hit Enter, it's still selected the entire range, but the focus is on that next cell. Enter, Enter, Enter. And we'll talk about that more, so don't think that it's not selected because it's, in this example, highlighted. Because it's in white, it means it's the highlight of the selection where you can begin the process for using other features in Excel, as well as entering in data, which we'll talk about in a later training video. So let me go ahead and click in another cell to deselect everything. You can either do Control A to select everything within the worksheet, not the workbook, just the worksheet, or you can come up here in between, let me scroll up just a bit, column A and row 1, right up there is a selector square. When you click on it, it selects everything within the worksheet, and then of course the beginning of the selection where you can start that has it highlighted is cell A1. Well, all these cells are merged, so it's selecting everything from A1 over to I1. And we'll talk about how to merge cells later on. Whew, getting ahead of myself. So there you go. Control A, or go ahead and click on the Select All block right there to select everything within your worksheet. Okay, I want to show you how you can create a basic worksheet, do a little bit of data entry, and I'll show you a little bit more detail about how to do it later on. But for right now, to get our fingers wet, or on the keyboard, let's go ahead and create a mini database. Now in Excel, you can do mini databases and also perform complex calculations, or even simple ones, formulas, and we'll do a combination of both later on, and also insert charts. We'll do that as well. In any case, I'm going to go ahead and begin typing or entering my database. You can choose any cell that you want. I'm just going to go down one row, ooh, big jump, to cell A2, and I'm going to type in months, hit the tab key. So these are my labels for each column. For months, sales, tab, expenses, tab, and then profits. When I hit the enter key, because I'm finished, I want to, well, go to the next row. It's going to take me back to the beginning because the pattern that was established when I first started typing in the first column is going to go back and return to the first column. So when I hit enter, there you go. As opposed to, well, if I come down here to do my example, I type in 1, hit tab, type in 2, hit tab, and let's say I get distracted, I got something else to do, so I come down here, make some changes, come back up here, and finish my series with 3, tab 4. When I hit enter, it's not going to come back to column F. It's going to come back to where, well, before I broke up, by going to another cell, to the initial start of this second part, 3 and 4, to column H. So when I hit enter, it goes to the next row, but it goes to column H because that's what happened when I came back after I broke up or left the initial series of 1, 2 and clicked off somewhere else. So keep that in mind. Excel likes to figure out and try to help you out when it comes to data entering by looking at some patterns here, and we'll go over another one in just a minute. So if I want to go ahead and delete this, well, I can come up here and hit undo, right? Because it will undo what I just typed in. But let me go ahead and click on redo to redo the typing that I just undid when I did what I did. And let's go ahead and select the range here and hit the delete key on the keyboard. So to do that, you want to get the white cross, click and drag. As we talked about in an earlier training video, the white cross is the selection option as opposed to, let me click off. If I select and I'm like, oops, I forgot to select the other cell. If you sloppily come back here and you don't get the white cross and you click and drag like the border of that range, you see how it's moving when you let go? Well, congratulations, you just learned something new here, that you can actually move data around after you select it by hovering over any of its borders and clicking and dragging it, just like thus. So keep that in mind. Let's go ahead and click off and get the white cross and click and drag and select the entire range and hit delete. There we go. And let's come back up here and finish entering in our mini little worksheet here. So for the months, we've got the months label right there. And below it, I want to include the months of January. Hit enter. Goes down, same column, February, enter. And then for March, oh, you see that? The moment I type in the letter M, it takes a look up here and it says, is there anything else that begins with the letter M? Because if it does, you can look at it one of two ways. You can say, oh, it's trying to help me out, so if I want to have the same entry, I can hit enter and it will automatically fill in the rest with months. It'll duplicate it. Or you can say, oh, it's already filling it in. That means somewhere up above, I already have it within this column. So that could be a flag to you to say, oh, well, I already have that there. So if I hit enter, it accepts it, right? So if I come back up and let me do it again, M, and it wants to, well, it's got the last part highlighted, indicating to you that, hey, if you hit enter, it'll accept it and enter it in. Just ignore it, keep typing over it to bypass it, and then hit enter. Then if I type in the letter M, it's like, okay, we got two M's here, so I'm not going to choose which one. That's too much work for me. But if I type in the letter A, then we got a match. Then you can say, oh, I already have March there. Well, it's obvious right there, but I'm saying if you're down on row 50,000, and you've got March somewhere up on row 5, you see that pop up? Well, that's a flag to let you know you already have that within that column. So if I hit the escape key, anytime I'm in data entry mode, it pulls me back out and clears out the cell. That's the escape key. And let me come down here, hit enter again. Let me get my totals and hit enter. And then I want to enter in the numbers for my sales and expenses. And so sales minus my expenses, I'll get my profits. And we'll do the calculations a little bit later. Right now I just want to get us into doing some simple entry here. So for the sales, let me just start typing in some numbers. 500, hit enter. It goes down to the next row. 685, 195, enter. Or I could have stayed up here and hit the tab key if I was going from sales for January to expenses, unless I want to do it all at once and keep it in the column here as I just did. So I could hit tab and let's go to expenses here. Wants to go down there, but let's go back here and do 190, and if I hit enter, then it establishes the pattern and it wants to go down to the next cell. Or I can hit the down arrow key or up arrow key, whatever works best for you. And let me go ahead and type in 5. And you can see here that there's my sales minus the expenses gives me my profits. And then down below I can get the total for the sales for the first quarter, then total expenses, and then, well, the profits once I figure that out, do the calculations over here. Right now I just want to get us started on a simple data entry. Congratulations, you just created the basic worksheet, but without the functions and formulas. That's coming up. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel to get notified of the latest videos. And for great specials on my products, please look in the description below this video.